What in the 20s is going
in the
on?
20s?
Think about
Yes, the 20s, baby.
Plenty. What in the 20s is going on?
20s, baby.
This is the 20s.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Zama Mkize, and this is What's in the 20s, a podcast where you listen to me grow through it, baby. On this episode, we are continuing the series, right, of just kind of glowing in our 2026 era, just kind of conquering it, making the most out of it, being the best versions of ourselves. In this episode, we're going to be speaking about changing your attitude. And I think this is something that's very important to do because, you know, I think how we present ourselves energetically influences so much of how we perform, how we experience the way that we perform things, and how other people experience us. So I have a issue with perfectionism, right? I want things to be perfect all the time. I want things to go as well as they possibly can be, as close to perfect at least, you know. I always want to make sure that when I do work, it's like, you know, this was the best I could have delivered. Because of that, it makes it very difficult for me to enjoy certain experiences because I'm so busy trying to make sure or wondering or being anxious about if it's coming out as great as it needs to be, right? And so like my energy sometimes when I'm meant to be enjoying something, when I'm meant to be enjoying the process of writing, of performing, of putting together a podcast episode and stuff, because I'm so like, all that's filling my mind is this good enough? Is this, you know, gonna land the way that it needs to? Am I executing it the way that I see it in my head and stuff? It starts becoming a very miserable process for me, right? And my attitude towards it, you know, sometimes I'll just, you know, when I realize, oh, I need to do a task, you know, blah, 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 of something that I enjoy doing, you know, I just immediately just start feeling like down, anxious, frustrated, like, oh my word, I've got this thing to do. It's like, think about even at school when you have an assignment, an essay, and all of that to submit, right? And the moment they tell you, yeah, we've got this assessment coming and stuff, you already start dreading it. You already start feeling like, or you feel stressed and anxious and all of that kind of stuff. And everything just starts feeling grueling, you know, like the days leading up to it is so, it's so frustrating. Like I know for me, I won't sleep days before my performance day and stuff like that. I struggle to just kind of enjoy my everyday or whatever because it's just on my mind so much that, yeah, I'm just not having a good time. And by the time I finished like performing and all the rest, I don't even feel proud. I don't even feel like I've achieved or whatever. I just feel relief. Like I just feel like, thank God it's over. You know, like thank God this feeling that I've been experiencing these last couple of days or, you know, all of that kind of stuff, it's past, it's over, it's, you know, and I end up just missing out on the entire experience that I was meant to, you know, enjoy because it becomes such a, you know, you even get to like a place where you start having like negative talk, right? It's negative self-talk or negative talk towards the thing, you know? I just feel like, oh, I just can't wait to get this event over and done with. Or I'm not in the mood to do this, or I'm too, like my head is in such a different space. Like you just start speaking negatively even about yourself. I convinced myself that I did not want to perform. This was something that has come to my mind like 2 years ago, where I said, I don't think I'm going to be doing live performance anymore because I hated the experience of just feeling anxious, of just feeling stressed out, of just feeling tired and all of that kind of stuff leading up to it, you know? And I've been performing, you know, since I was maybe 4 years old, you know, on stage and stuff like that. And so I always knew it's something that like I love and enjoy and stuff like that. But like the process getting up to it just didn't feel like it was worth it. And because of that, I told myself I'm not going to be doing live performances anymore. I truly convinced myself that this would be like the end and I'd only focus on behind the scenes things and all of that kind of stuff, you know? And my attitude towards something that I loved became something that I hated. And it's so crazy. Like you will literally drift away from something you know you care about because you're so caught up in the stress of making it great. And maybe your thing isn't necessarily perfectionism. Maybe it is laziness. Because you're lazy, you just have a negative outlook or negative attitude towards doing a task, towards accomplishing something, you know? And so the way that you talk to other people who do it is just, it's so negative. You bring them down or you make them feel like, what is the point of them, you know, seeking out for this thing? You know, why would they put so much energy or whatever, you know, to achieve this thing, etc., etc. You know, maybe your thing is because you've failed at something, or because you've lost at something, or because you just don't feel like you've had necessarily the same opportunities and stuff. You become so bitter and all of that, that your attitude towards it becomes so terrible. You become so terrible in the workspace with other people around, your friends who are trying and all of that, towards yourself and the way that you see yourself and all of that kind of stuff. Like it leads into so many different things, right? And your attitude, I think people forget that, like, it's not just something that you alone are experiencing, but it's something that people around you are feeling too and experiencing too. And I think because of, our attitude, we end up self-sabotaging, And so the same way that I said, for example, that I didn't want to perform anymore, I wouldn't accept certain opportunities that came my way because I just thought I couldn't do it. I thought I couldn't handle it. I thought that it wasn't made for me and all of that kind of stuff. Like, we begin to reject ourselves from opportunities. We begin to say no to ourselves when it comes to being presented with something that could be so great, even if it's challenging. Challenging is good. We should be evolving humans that participate in things that are challenging and stuff like that. But I think sometimes we can feel so overwhelmed, so just caught in our attitude about something that makes us feel like this isn't going to be great. Have you ever gone on holiday? Have you ever gone on holiday with someone who's just complaining about everything? Maybe not even holiday, just going to a restaurant or whatever, and they find something wrong with anything and everything, with the service, with the food, with the this table, with the this and that, like the experience, the weather, the this, like, and they just have a way of vocalizing it over and over and bringing down the energy in the space and all of that, because their attitude towards certain things, it's constantly trying to find what's wrong, trying to find what's negative and all of that kind of stuff. And as I said, it's also like, it's self-sabotaging, because you're sabotaging the experience. You're sabotaging all the positive things that could come out of that holiday, that trip, that work experience and all of that kind of stuff, because all you're doing is projecting the negative. All you're doing is projecting everything that could go wrong. And that's the thing that we can sometimes struggle with when it comes to our goals. If our attitude isn't right, we're going to start saying things like, why am I even pursuing this goal anyways? Why would I even make that a goal? Why do I want better for myself? Like, why is it so important to do this and achieve that? We're going to start thinking like, oh, is it even that important to be working in these certain spaces and all of that kind of stuff? Do I even really care? And all of that, as I said, we're just going to keep coming back to what's the point? What's the point? Rolling your eyes like, no, thank you. I don't want to do that. And that's because our attitude is terrible, is so terrible. We don't have an expansive mindset. And I think that we need to change our perspective, right? Because the thing with having a bad attitude is that we don't see things as they are. We see it as we think, right? We see the world as we think. We see situations and all of that have happened as we think, not as they are. An example of this could be, I saw an example actually the other day, like a month ago or something, about, say, for example, you're home alone, right? Because your family decides they're going away. You say your parents decide they're going out for dinner and all of that. So they leave you home alone and all of that. Next thing, you hear the door open, right? You could possibly think that's just the wind. It's just the wind. You don't even like feel anything, you even think, oh, okay, cool. You like stroll your way to the door to just kind of lock it, and like, you feel very calm, very, whatever. Or you could be thinking somebody's breaking in. Then anxiety starts to shoot up inside of you, and you start feeling so like, oh my gosh, scared. You're thinking of where to hide or trying to find a weapon. You're just, or like, it almost even feels paralyzing, like someone's in the house. Maybe you start even calling 911 and all of that kind of stuff. Or you hear the door slamming or opening, and you think, oh, maybe my parents just forgot something and they came back. So. And that makes you feel even like, oh, okay, like calm again, like very much like, oh, like, mom, are you there? Is that you? Whatever it is. And so that's what I mean when I'm like, perspective. We see the world as we think, is because however way that your attitude, like the first place that your mind goes to, that's the immediate response your body gets, the immediate response that you would feel inside your mind, and the things that will trigger around you, because that's how you've trained your mind to think. where's the first place that your mind goes to when something happens? And I think that's such an important thing to think about, because there was a period in my life where I would just always get scared. Like, I would always, if I didn't anticipate someone being around and I would look to like my left or whatever and I see someone, I'd like, when you just kind of like jump in a bit of like a shock. And my mom would be like, Summer, it's me. Like, why are you, what's stressing you? Why are you so scared? Like, why do you think you're in this house alone? And all of that kind of stuff. Like, why do you immediately think of the worst case scenario and all of that kind of stuff? And I think it's really important, like, we how we rewire, and choose to think about events that are happening in our lives and all of that kind of stuff. Like, you might be thinking that a certain task that say your boss or whatever presents you might be feeling like, oh, they're undermining me. Like, why are they presenting me with so much work and this and this and this? Like, why? Or you could be thinking a different direction, that I'm so grateful that they trust me enough to believe that I can handle this much, that they think that I can do it, obviously within reason and all the rest. But like, our attitude genuinely will influence our performance, will influence the way that we do something and the way that we experience it. And I think another thing we also need to understand is that our brain is constantly looking for evidence to support what we believe, to support what we're thinking. So because if you're at a restaurant and you feel like this is such a terrible restaurant, you're going to keep finding reasons to prove this is such a terrible restaurant. You're going to keep finding anything, to just make sense of it all. That like, yeah, this is why I believe that this is so. And I have every right to believe that this is so. And it's the same for anything and everything. If you feel like you're you don't like someone, you're going to keep finding reasons to not like them. You're going to keep finding reasons to be like, you see, the way that they do this and the way that they said this and the way that, you know what I'm saying? That time, someone who could be your closest friend or family member could be saying the exact same thing or doing the exact same thing, but we have so much grace and compassion and empathy for them, because we're not looking at them with an attitude of, I need to hate this person, or I need to dislike this person, or disregard this person, etc., etc. And I think our brain, because it's going to believe that, like, I think even the inverse, if you keep trying to find positives, you're going to keep finding positives. You're going to keep finding things to celebrate, things to enjoy, things to be pleased about, things to really acknowledge in a happy way, because your outlook and your perspective, you're teaching your brain and signaling, to constantly look for things that support that this is a good environment, that this is a happy relationship, that this is a, etc., etc., for so many different reasons and stuff like that. And because of that, this is how we create our world. This is how we create how we exist and stuff like that. If you keep saying, I hate going to the gym, I hate exercise, I hate working out, I hate this and that, you're going to hate the experience of doing it. And before you know it, you're going to stop doing it. You're going to stop being physically active and stuff like that, because you've trained yourself to believe that this is something you hate, and your attitude towards it is not encouraging or motivating you to continue it. The problem with having a bad attitude is that we repel the people around us, right? So, as I said earlier, it's not just us experiencing this bad attitude, this negative talk that we're having. It's everyone that is in proximity to us that is like now also, when I say you suck the energy out of the room, out of the space, you pull everything down with you because of your attitude towards it, So now you're not in the mood to exercise. Your friend is in the mood to exercise, but now you keep saying negative things that are just like, oh, why would you even do that? Why would you put so much energy into hiking, this and this and this and this? Now people just don't want to associate with you because it's like they have their goals, they have their plans, they have their things that they want to do. And all you're doing is making them feel discouraged as to why they shouldn't be doing it. And it's just like, why would I want to what attracts anyone to somebody with a bad attitude? What makes anybody want to hang around someone who literally, sucks the joy out of everything, sucks the life out of everything and stuff like that. And so you end up just losing people around you because your outlook isn't positive. Your outlook doesn't make people want to associate and be around you and stuff like that. And now everybody is just miserable. And everybody is just, even quiet. Nobody even knows what to say because they're afraid of like your response to it, or they're not in the mood to hear what you have to say, back and all of that kind of stuff. It is draining. It is absolutely draining having a bad attitude, because not only are you sucking the life out of everyone else, but you're also sucking the life out of yourself. It makes you also just so tired. Always saying something so negative, looking at the world so negative, having something just down to say. It also drains you, because now you're just moody all the time. It takes a lot of energy to constantly be moody, to constantly be upset and grumpy and all of that kind of stuff over and over and over. You just start hating your life and everything, and I think that, like, again, it promotes laziness and stuff like that, because you're just not in the mood to partake in anything, because your attitude towards it is just terrible. Like, now I wasn't in the mood to perform and all of that kind of stuff, so I wouldn't take on work that made me perform, and I just became more lazy and not challenging myself to do the thing that I love. It's also self-limiting. So again, as I'm saying, because I thought that I didn't enjoy performing, I would limit myself to just writing. I would limit myself to just what can I do behind the scenes and stuff like that, instead of, as I said, an expansive mindset where you're able to just kind of take on more, do more, look for more, be so optimistic and aspire for more. But you hold yourself back because of your outlook. You hold yourself back because of your perspective on things in life, and etc., etc. I think another thing is that it makes you abandon your goals when you have a bad attitude. You start thinking, as I said earlier, what's the point? Why do I need to do this? Why should I care? And all of that kind of stuff, that you end up just kind of letting it go, neglecting it completely, and just not partaking on it. And the reason I'm bringing this episode up before we discuss like how to make goals and all of that is because I really need us to prepare our minds first, tell ourselves that because I'm setting out on this goal, I am signing up to be challenged. I am signing up to be in spaces I've never been before, to take up space. I'm signing up to go out of my comfort zone and all of that kind of stuff. You need to already prepare your mind in a way that is positive and exciting, looking forward to it, rather than something that makes you feel like, oh, this is going to be an intense 3 months or 6 months or 12 months. This is going to be such a stress. I mean, think about anyone who's like trying to do their masters and all of that. Instead of having an outlook like, oh my gosh, the next few years are going to be just difficult, frustrating, all of that kind of stuff, time consuming and stuff. Think about it as, the next 2 years, I'm going to learn more than I ever thought I could. I'm going to discover things. I'm going to just become so renewed in my sense of self, my knowledge and all of that kind of stuff, and the way that I see the world. Like, that is so much more exciting and endearing, to kind of go on. A few tips I would give as to how to have a better attitude is, just see the glasses half full rather than half empty. I think that when you kind of have that outlook that like there's more to life, that I'm halfway there, I just gotta keep going rather than like, oh, I still have halfway to go. I think that everything just feels better, man. So even with writing, I would feel like, oh my gosh, I'm only, 7,000 words through, and I need to be at 15,000. And I just feel like, oh my gosh, another 7,000 again. I need to do it again. But it's more like, I can't believe I've written 7,000 words. That's amazing. Let me do more, like I clearly have the ability to do it. So let's just keep going. Let's just keep moving and all of that. Have an abundant mindset, don't have a lack or scarcity mindset, thinking that like, oh, there's not enough for everyone, there's not a this and that, because that's going to change your attitude. Always think that there is more and then some, that there's overflow, for you to give, for you to share, for you to have, and that kind of thinking just makes things possible. It makes you feel like limitless, honestly speaking, because that whatever you're putting out, there's still more, whatever you're getting, there's still more, rather than just feeling like this is it, this is all that there will be, this is all that I will ever get or receive and stuff like that your attitude just starts looking down on things and all the rest. Have gratitude, practice, have a consistent practice that leans into gratitude. I think if you're constantly just grateful for what you have, grateful for your progress, grateful for what you've put in and all of that, you're always going to feel like you're on the right track. I think a lack of gratitude comes from focusing on what we don't have, what we haven't achieved, what we've lost and all of that. But when we refocus and rewire our minds to kind of just be grateful, like whether it's even doing it daily, right? A daily practice of just thinking of 3 things, 5 things that you're grateful for and stuff. It makes it less of a bad day or a hard day or a tough day or whatever it is. And I think sometimes tough days make tough people, and I think if you just have some gratitude for all that it's taken you to get here, for all that it's taken you to get through the day and stuff. I think it just helps you change your mindset and your attitude towards things. And again, change your perspective. If you can feel yourself thinking about something negatively, stop yourself, literally counteract that thought, because as I said, this is a practice. You're not going to get it the first time. You're not going to get it right the first time, right? You have to when you see that thought coming in that's already about to tell you that life sucks, life is terrible, this and that, why am I doing this? Why am I waking up early? Why am I, counteract that and remind yourself this is an incredible blessing and a privilege and an opportunity that I get to do this, that I get to embark on this, that I get to just experience this and stuff like that. I think it's just, I think when you just keep changing, when you can see yourself going to the worst possible state mentally, think of, what if it works out for me? What if it works out exactly the way that I need it to? What if this is a blessing, in disguise and all of that kind of stuff? What if this is protection? Try to keep having different perspectives on the same situation so that you're not just clouded on just thinking the worst of it. But yeah, that's really what I wanted to speak about today. That as we go into the new year and all of that, let's start changing our mindset. I told you already, I'm trying to change my mindset on year-end fatigue, and it's so difficult. It's so difficult, but I am still actively I still feel pumped. I still feel what? I've got some to give. I still got some left in me to give and all of that. So yeah, here's to changing our attitude. As always, I'm sending my love. Goodbye.
What in the 20s is going on? In the 20s, yes. The 20s, baby. What in the 20s is going here for my 20s, baby? This is the 20s.